your digital sound art expression, Lester Mendoza.
Yes, sir.
Keith Tisdale. And who we have in the building right here. Introduce yourself.
What up, man? My name is Bobby Castro.
Bobby.
Castro, man. That sounds gangster, Bobby. Gangster.
I just kept it simple, too. That's my real name, you know?
Word.
I was breaking my head trying to find the name, and I was like, man, my real name sounds kind of cool.
Yeah. Hold on, tell me this. What names did you come up with in that process?
Well, I was Big Rob for a long time.
Big Rob.
That was pretty typical, though. You know, it was like,
yeah.
any big dude named Rob was just always Big Rob.
Yes.
Plus, I wanted to separate my street name from the artist name, you know, because I want to leave that where it was.
Hey. Any other alias?
Why you telling all this business though?
Man.
No, I want to hear something crazy like Jam Master Bobby D.
Oh, you're talking about musical aliases, okay?
right. Just a bunch of fucking street aliases that shit just evolves, you know? The street aliases just evolves.
Yeah.
I was just telling the other day somebody how my brother, we call him French.
Yeah.
And it comes from the old ass NBA, I don't know what game. And there used to be a player called LaFrance. You guys heard LaFrance, right? Old school player, basketball player.
Who do you play for?
Like the Timberwolves or some shit like that.
Okay.
Anyways, in the game we used to say like, that nigga looks like you. We used to tell my brother all the time, you know?
Yeah.
And she like, why does she look like this fool right here? And then it became LaFrance, and LaFrance somehow became French because we would tell him that he's a Pepe Le Pew ass because he was always chasing tail, you know? So that she just became from LaFrance to French to French boy to Frenchie.
That shit just evolved.
Names evolve, yeah.
Like like Monkey the Man and shit like that.
Yeah.
It's evolution.
Darwinism.
So man, so going right into it, so how'd you get into this business of music? Like what did it start
Ever
for
since
you?
the first time, you know what? I was like 8 years old when my neighbors they were always real musical. Like my mom sings.
Okay.
You know, so they always made me and my brother sing when we were kids, just whether we wanted to or not. You know, like people would come over just sing. You know, or they would take us to Mexico and over there to all the church stuff where all the kids would sing during Christmas and all that. Just go over there and sing. You know, and so then my neighbors, they were also kids and they were very musically inclined because their dad played in a band and all that stuff. So we would always just kind of hang out. And I remember one day they invited us to this party, and it was rare too because my dad wouldn't let us go nowhere. You know, my dad was like a dictator. You know, like no means no, and he let us go this time. And when we were on the way there, I remember my neighbor was like, "Hey, we're gonna start a band today." You know, I was like, "All right." So he started assigning instruments, and he assigned to me something called tarola, which is a snare, right? But in Spanish, it's called tarola.
Okay.
It sounded crazy as fuck to me, so you know, I was the youngest one at the time, so I threw a fit, you know?
Yeah.
I don't want to play
Not
that
the
shit.
cool instrument.
Yeah, I wanted some other cool shit. And he just gave me a tarola. I was like, what the fuck is that? That shit sounds like some indigenous instrument. And then we got there.
Turn up my snare.
And I seen the snare, and I was like, I want to play that.
Yeah.
And he was like, fool, that's what I just told you you're going to play. So that day I learned like maybe the 3 basic like Latin rhythms, which is like, you know, balseado, corrido, and then cumbia. And I fell in love with it like immediately. Like that day on the way home, I thought to myself, this is what I want to do for sure.
Yeah.
And sure enough, we practiced. You know, when you're young and you fall in love with something like that, you just can't get enough of it, you know? So you soak everything up so fast. So we started a band, and it was just really from little things that we would put together, like literally like pots and pans, and then we made like a bass out of a guitar, but just took off all the strings and just left the 4 top ones.
Yeah.
And then people started donating stuff to us.
Yeah.
And we played out religiously, like we practiced for like 3 years before we got our first gig, right?
Okay.
And we were pretty good because, well, it would be all the dudes that would be like all the older guys that would be drinking on the block and chilling. They would just come over and hear us play for free.
Yeah.
And we would just play for all the guys that would be right there kicking it. And
like cipher sessions, right?
Then,
or jam sessions,
just jam sessions. But it would be like they would just come and just listen to free music and drink while they're doing it. We were kids, and we liked having an audience. So to us, it was just practice anyways. Till one day, so a lot of these guys they would piece up on buying us stuff sometimes. Like they'll overhear us say like, or they'll see us like, because we had a lot of like Mickey Mouse shit, like where I would put like a drumstick on a chair. And then put an old symbol that like anybody that would find musical stuff anywhere, cousins, friends, they would call us or they would save it for us. So one of my cousins brought me like a beat up ass symbol that was like half missing, but it's still
one sided.
It'd just be like not even like no decay.
I would just put it on the stick. I had a snare at the time, but it didn't have the bottom strings, that makes it snarey.
Yeah. Right.
And I would put a brick on it to tighten it up. So when they would see that type of stuff, a lot of these guys would be like, damn, these kids are really trying to make it happen and they just don't have the resources. So little by little, like they would put money together and be like, okay, now we got a microphone stand, now we got this. Now, and we started getting equipment or older musicians we would go because we would like to just go and sit down at like sessions, like practice sessions with the older musicians. Mm-hmm. And then they'll give us a chance to rock. And we never had real instruments. So to us it was like, oh shit. Yeah. But they'll see the passion that we had for it, that a lot of times they would donate some leftover equipment that they had or some old equipment that they had. Yeah. So one day, one of these guys that used to sit there and listen to us play, he wanted to hire us for his wedding. So it's kind of crazy because we're like, are you sure? So the worst thing that could happen happened in the sense of like, we caught wind that his wife didn't want us to play because, this is my wedding. It's the most special day of my life.
They haven't heard of you.
I don't want no little kids playing, So when you're a kid, that really fucks with you, like that type of shit. Like, because I remember just being shaken in my boots that day. And we went to buy like little matching coordinating uniforms.
Outfits.
And I was there just thinking like, because of knowing that, we were, at this point, we were pretty solid because we had been playing together for 3 years.
So tell me this, where was that taking place? What was it, in LA? Or?
South Central Los Angeles.
Central?
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So we'd basically just practice in my backyard, in my garage. And we played that first gig, and everything changed once we went on stage. I think we were all kind of a little bit like nervous and scared because we were like, she's here, all her family's here. Yeah. We know she didn't want us to play. We know that the guy eventually, he was like, you know what? I like you guys. I know you guys are dope. And once they hear it, once everybody hears it, then.
Now, were you guys playing? Were you guys playing originals or were you guys playing cover songs?
We were doing covers at the time. Just all the back in like must have been like in the early '90s, and all the typical Mexican party songs. We would just cover everything from one spectrum to the other. Yeah. And we got on stage and everything kind of like went like I forgot about all that. I was kind of lucky because I was in the back on the drums, so I didn't have to be there front stage. So I kind of just blacked out, and we went in and we did what we did every day in my backyard. And eventually it was like it went from us feeling really like fuck, they don't even want us to perform here, and to the lady asking for the microphone, and she was kind of like broke down and started telling us like, you know what, I'll admit that I didn't want you guys to play, but you guys got this party cracking. Yeah. And I'm having fun, my family's having fun, I'm really sorry. So that was kind of like dope. It was like a bad situation became an inspirational situation where it was like, okay, this is tight. And then that same night, and I guess I always remember that night more than anything because it was our first real paid gig, Yeah.
How much you get paid?
You know what? I think at that time we were charging like $100 the hour, $100 an hour. Yeah, we're charging $100 an hour.
Good money. I mean, you had to split it between how many guys?
It was 4 of us.
4 of us. Okay. And $25.
And you know what?
That's good.
And you get to eat.
Right.
And back then, I mean, that to us was like, there was really, at that age, you don't get no income from nowhere. So that was something that you were earning already, even though my dad and the other 2 guys were brothers also. Yeah. And their dad, well, they were control the dough, but I mean, we still had a little new pair of shoes that week or something, you know what I mean? But what's crazy to me is that I love doing it, and I did it, and on the weekends we started gigging tough. And then we would go to the swap meets, I remember, and we would just go anywhere where somebody was playing live music, we would just want to be there to soak it up.
Yeah.
And eventually, if they saw us and they were like, oh, these guys are kids, you guys are musicians, yeah, come on, get on. So everybody would give us an opportunity to get on. and we would rock out. And then I would go to school, and I was still in elementary at the time.
Damn.
I would go to school during the week, and then kids would come up to me and be like, "Hey, I seen you at the swap meet playing," and I'd just be like, "Nah, that wasn't me."
Okay.
I don't know why I did that to this day. Like, I know I wasn't embarrassed. I just kind of kept it separate. I just kind of like, that was that important to me that I was just kind of like, no, this is holy to me. You know, like, I don't know.
Right.
And then eventually I kind of started letting it more out where I kind of told on myself, because I would say like, no, that wasn't me. But on show and tell day, I would always bring instruments for show and tell. You know?
It's like Clark
Here's my
Kent.
broken cymbal that I got from my man's.
So things were looking really good, man. I really feel like one of those really blessed in the sense that I see a lot of people drop out of this race just in the time. I mean, I started doing this since I was 8 years old, and I see a lot of people give up on that dream because it's tough. It's really tough.
Yeah, it's hard.
And I feel like not only am I still here, but I've actually, they say sometimes nobody gets those second opportunities, because at that point we got pretty good to where we started having like they started calling us up for auditions, for the big time stuff that I don't think I completely understood how big it was at the time, but I knew it was good. I knew that we were shooting for something.
Right.
We would just play because we love it. But I knew that eventually it's like, okay, we could do this for a living. That's what I want to do. So then we had like a couple of big disappointments back then for whatever reasons. And
like what type of disappointment?
Like it kind of became where like we wouldn't make it. We wouldn't really agree on going to these things, because I think it was like we're getting too ahead of ourselves almost at the age, and then like with our parents, kind of like, oh, kind of slow down. This is getting kind of crazy. You guys still going to school, and this industry will eat you up alive. And trying
you guys were playing on like school nights.
Yeah, because the rules were that. The rules were like, all right, you guys could gig, you guys could play, but you're not gonna miss school because of this. Or like the way my dad would do it is like, you guys did your homework and you can't go practice. You know? So at the time it was like music was just, I would literally cry. If my dad didn't let me go practice, I would cry.
Yeah.
You know, so and then it got to that point to we kind of hit a stump, because it was like we're getting too ahead of ourselves, and now it's kind of getting to where opportunities are coming, but they were kind of telling us like, wait a little bit. You guys are too young, and this really eats you up alive, this game, because my neighbor's dad, he was a musician his whole life.
Yeah.
So he kind of knew. So I think our parents were being a little careful. But like to me and my brother, I remember we would be like, it was a little bit of a disappointment when we couldn't make it one time to a really good audition with some guy that was like a real big personality back then.
Yeah.
And I think I got a little sour after that, like with music. Like,
how old was you?
I want to say at that point I must have been like 13, 14. And then that's when I got introduced. Cause see, I was really heavily into what I started, which is like Mexican regional and Spanish stuff.
Yeah.
And then 13, 14 is kind of when you start dabbling with the streets also.
Yeah.
And that's when I came across hip hop. And I never thought that I would fall in love with another genre as much, just like I did with what I started.
Yeah.
That was like my first love. But then I was like, oh shit, I feel as strongly about this.
What do you remember that moment? Like, what was the song? What was the artist?
I remember that that one of my neighbors, also one of the same guys that I ended up doing a lot of music with it during life, which you know them, Pancho and Alvaro. They're still great musicians to this day, also.
Yeah.
And he used to play. We weren't allowed. I remember back then to like listen to hip hop like in our household, because
why? What type of hip hop? Because it was
or like rap, like gangster rap, because from the West Coast, so that was kind of what was popping.
That's what it was.
Yeah. And
was it those guys NWA?
It said backwards. I remember the first one that I heard that I was
backwards.
like,
It's a bad word.
It said bad words. So to our parents, that shit was like
shit, damn motherfucker, stuff like that, guys.
So I remember the first time I heard DJ Quick is in the motherfucking house. DJ Quick is in the
yes.
That shit just pumped me up, because it was something that you weren't supposed to be listening to. So I was like, oh shit, this shit goes hard. And then you start hiding it. And then one day my brother, he came, he wasn't really too much into the rap stuff, but he brought the Doggy Style when it first came out,
Ooh.
And I was already on it, so I was already like waiting for it to come out. So he gave it to me before it came out. I'm not gonna say how he got it, but
Yeah.
he gave it to me and he was like, "Hey, you like this stuff, huh?" And that shit right there was just like, that's a classic, you know?
Yeah.
Man.
So then that happened, and then eventually it became to where like I started hearing rapping, and then I started hearing some Spanish rap here and there, and I would be like, I think I could do that. Everything musically for me always started like that.
Yeah.
Like, I think I could do that. And then I became that dude where everything I heard, I was like, I think I could do that.
Yeah.
And I would just do it. And somewhere I read something that said, never know, always now. Right? So I think that's when I kind of started advancing more in music, because it would be like people would ask me, like, I would be in a session somewhere and then somebody would come in there and be like, hey, is anybody that can do this here?
Yeah.
Be like, hey, Bobby, can you do that? And I'll be like, yeah, I can do that. I ain't never done that in my life.
Yeah.
But I'll just go do homework that night. That night, I'll listen to everything I can of whatever they were asking for, and I was able to pull it off. And that gave me a lot of confidence, you know? That gave me a lot of confidence. But, yeah, a lot of ups and downs.
Yeah.
But it's a very passionate thing, this music thing. You know, I'm sure everybody's passionate about what they do, but like now, some of the youngsters that I develop or whatever, that's one of the first things I tell them. I was like, you know, you're choosing a career, or you're coming into a game that is very passionate, and with passion comes a lot of emotion, and with emotion comes a
lot of fire.
Really?
Yeah. So I was like, but if you're ready for that, it's like not too long ago I was at a video shoot, and some youngsters that were right there, they were like, "Oh, Bobby, man, we heard your shit. Your shit is dope." Da, da, da. And they started asking me for advice and all this, and I was like, "Look, I'm gonna tell you, this is probably the worst time ever to get into the music industry, just statistically, you know?
Yeah.
But if that doesn't scare you, then it's for you."
Yeah,
you know,
that's some good advice right
because
there.
you can't come in scared at all.
Yeah.
You know, you got to come in thinking like, this is what I do. This is, you know, confidence just plays so much. Anytime I'm doing any coaching in the studio, that's other than obviously hitting the notes or a cadence that you're supposed to do.
Yeah.
Just confidence is when it comes to being an artist, a performer, entertainer. That just plays the, like, you will always do your best performance, whether it's in the studio or in the stage, if your confidence is there. You know,
Right.
and only to build confidence is practice, like anything else, and always wanting to learn.
Yeah. So you just crossed over. I mean, you talked about like from 8 to being at this point where you're in school. Parents are like, no, got to be careful and everything like that. And then you talked about developing artists. So yeah, childhood musician, turn producer, songwriter, artist development. Tell us about that side, because we heard the younger side. So how'd you cross over into just writing songs and everything like that and developing artists?
I always liked to do it all. You know, sometimes when I would just be doing production and writing, when I would just do writing, I would miss producing. When I would just do producing, and then I just eventually wanted to just, everything I felt I was able to, I wanted to do it. One day this guy, Jeff Carruthers is his name. He's a dope producer, old school dude. He worked with Motown and all that. And he told me, he was like, "Look, Bobby, I see you're good at everything you do." He was like, "You're good at everything you do, and I know you want to do it all." He was like, "But with that being said," he was like, "choose one. Choose one and go hard with that, because it's hard enough to make it in one thing in this industry." He's like, "I know that's not what you want to hear, because I feel the same way." He's like, "But if I want to give you a real advice." So then I took it into consideration, but at that point I thought to myself, a lot of people had already told me that.
Yeah.
Like, just choose one. And when I was younger, I used to be more on the, you know, when you're younger, you're a little bit more ignorant and more like rah, like, "Nah, man, I want to do it all. Fuck that. I could do it. You know, if somebody else couldn't do it, I could do it." I understood later in life, when I started going to my first real sessions, what they meant. Because like one of my first real sessions, I had to, I was producer, songwriter, featuring on the song, and all that shit. So when the homies would be like, "Oh, let's take a break, man. Let's go get some food or something," I would get up, and the engineer would be like, "Nah, where you going? You know, we got a mix now."
Yeah.
Like, what the fuck? And then after that, now you got to do this. "Oh, you're the songwriter too? Oh, now you got to do this. Now we got to do this paperwork." And I was like, "Oh shit, I see what they mean. This is really work."
Right.
And then you start dealing with deadlines and all that shit, and it's like, okay, now I'm doing everything myself, but now I have a deadline. So now it got crazy, right? So
and it makes sense because I've known Bobby for a while now.
Yeah.
For a long time. For a long time. And one thing about Bobby is because he's gotten me involved with projects where we just end up and we don't even know why we're like, this ain't even our up our alley. We're over here trying to meet this deadline. So Bobby does not say no. He will take it.
Ever since then, I told myself, I was like, this is what I really want. When you really want something, you get to times really, I really went through times in my life when I would pray for it. Like, just give me the opportunity to work and to show what I can do. And I promise I will work hard for it.
Yeah.
I will never complain.
Yeah.
So every time now, even when I get tired or when I be like, damn, I got to finish this up, I got to be in the studio all night, I always think about that. Yeah. And I'm like, I'm blessed to be doing what I love to do. And so that was always my mentality. Like, I was kind of conscious that I was taking the long route because I always try to do everything right and my business right in a business that's very crazy.
Yeah.
But I consciously made that decision to just take the straight route, and I figured eventually people will connect the dots themselves.
Right. Yeah.
And that's kind of what started happening for me. And yeah, man, so that's at one point it was kind of like, well, now it's too late to just choose one. Because now this is kind of my
You've already nurtured all angles of the industry.
Yeah, it's kind of became my MO, like, oh yeah, we'll just call Bobby. And also I always took them last minute pressure jobs that sometimes people would take it as like they're trying to sabotage you because it's like, how you gonna call me for something that you gotta turn in at 6 a.m. and it's midnight?
Yeah.
It's kind of like you're just using me as a filler. But at the same time, I was like, nah, I'm gonna go rock it. And that eventually paid off because then
that's what's up right there.
Because
that's what's up.
Because eventually it would be like,
that's a grind.
It was like, well, shit, I've been doing this my whole life. So now it's not a pressure job for me. This is what I do.
Yeah. You got a process and you got a formula to.
So I've got it.
As well.
I've been involved in a lot of dope projects and gotten a lot of dope opportunities because of that. Because people know, like, well, shit, call Bobby. He'll take the job, even if it is a pressure job, even if it is some shit that we got to turn in a few hours. And that's like what Lester was talking about. Because me and him, I know who I can call for those jobs and who's gonna be like with it. And Lester has always been that dude for me too, where it's like, hey, look, check it out. They want me to do this remix for this. I ain't never done it, but are you down to do it? And he's like, come on down.
Right.
And we would knock it out, and it'll be dope. So that's really how it happened with me developing artists. It was really just, I always kind of felt like, I remember everything when I started and how hard it was and how nobody would really help you out because, again, like I said, everybody has that dream. Everybody in this game has wanted that really bad since they were a kid.
Yeah.
So it became real crazy to where it's like, who wants it more and why should you have it when I want it too? And I remember back then it was like nobody really looked out for you because a lot of the dudes that could, they had a chip on their shoulder because it was like, well, I had my struggle. Yeah. I got here through my merits,
Right.
But I felt a little different once I had a little something to give back.
Yeah.
As in like advice or to something to lend a helping hand to somebody. I would do it all the time because I would see like raw talent.
Mm-hmm.
And I would be like, I would really see that they didn't have an idea of even what first step to take.
Yeah.
So I would help them out with that. And a lot of times I would tell them like, look, I got a lot on my plate right now and I'm still trying to figure myself out, but I'll help you out with this and this and that. And then once I would kind of get them going, I didn't want to just leave them there because then it's kind of like defeated the purpose,
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
And I'll be like, well, shit, I'll help you out till you figure out.
So how do you
figure it out for yourself?
How do you know? Like, let's talk about what hat you like to wear.
What hat?
Yeah.
Anything LA.
Besides the LA hat you got going on right now.
I've always been real like hats is my thing, but I've always like the hats to me mean something. They have to mean something, It has to be for sure. It's very rare for me to ever rock any team that's not LA.
No, I mean, I'm talking about like producer hat. Producer hat.
Talking about work
fashion.
Shit. I started getting all hood and shit.
He went literal.
I like the Orioles.
I was like,
what hat I like to wear as
a songwriter, like producer, as an artist.
Man,
like,
see, that's the craziest question ever.
Like,
I think I've never really been able to answer that. That's why I kept doing everything. I kept doing everything, even though everybody was telling me it was going to be very difficult. I thought to myself, all right, let me choose one. Let me see which one I love the most. And I couldn't really decide that. Right. I would always be like, I love all of them equally. Like I miss one when I do the other one. And the same thing goes for genre.
Damn, that's interesting. Yeah.
You know what?
That's hardcore.
I can relate, Bobby, man. I can relate to that because a lot of people and just everywhere, man, they make you seem weird because you're into everything. You like a little bit of everything, and if you look at the pioneers in life, like Einstein, E equals MC squared, and then you look into what he was doing as just a human being. Dude played the violin. He liked sports. He was into a lot of different things, man. But it takes being into a lot of different things to find that one thing that you can really, really master because your inspirations, I know my inspirations don't completely come from music.
Right.
Come from movies, it come from conversations, it comes from girlfriends, quotes and everything like that. It's just like, and then it's like, okay, this is the medium of expression that I want to choose. So I can definitely relate to that, man. But there's a world that teaches, and it's usually in the educational institutions and systems and stuff like that. They say, hey, choose a major after school, then you go get a job for that. And you're like, no, I'm into this other shit. He's like, no. You can only master one thing. You be about science. It's like, no, but I'm about the math shit too. And I'm about technology. It's like, it's this weird thing that goes on in America, but I think that you can relate to that. And I think through your story, man.
I mean, I think that some people need that. I think that some people need that program, that order, but I think that some of us is just like, that's not how we're built. You know what I mean? To work like that and just, and me, I think that was the problem with school with me. I've always kind of had a problem with process. Yeah. With a process of following a process or following suit. I've always felt like, why?
Amen. Amen.
You know what I mean? And even though when you get older and you start realizing certain things and why they're done a certain way, I respect and accept certain things. Yeah. But for a large part, I just kind of decided to just stay true to myself. I caught myself at one point changing because of the industry, because of what the advice they were giving me. And of course I have to respect these advices because it was people that have been in the game for 10, 20 years. Yeah. Right? But I started feeling kind of stale when I was just following suit, when I was just kind of like, okay, well, you got to do this because this is how it's been done for this long. Yeah. I started feeling like, okay, well, I got to listen to these guys because I think that this is where I'm at right now in my career.
It's like your parent telling you not to go there, but you were like, I want to go there.
So then I did a quick little social experiment one day where I was sitting with a lot of these guys in the table and just, they were all telling me what way I should go with my artists, with my music, with my songwriting. Yeah. You need to do this, Bobby, you need to do that. And I would listen to them, or when they would tell me, nah, that's kind of crazy what you're trying to do, you shouldn't do that. And then I would stop. Then it didn't feel me no more. It wasn't the person that had got me that far.
So yeah, you're a true artist. I mean, that's artistry right there. I feel like that's a unique artist right there.
So one day I kind of just started speaking my mind. I started like, well, no, really, I think that it can be like this also. Not because it's been like this. These are the ideas that I have, and I want to kind of. I want to set my mark. Also, I don't want to just do what everybody's been doing. Right. Like I have a lot of ideas. I have a lot of things that I want to do. That I've always had a lot of respect for all music and genre, but I've also always been able to kind of blend them. Yeah. And they kind of started agreeing with me right away. So at that moment, I kind of told myself, you know what? I'm going back to doing me, because if these people been doing something a certain way for 20, 30 years, and now in 3 minutes, I was able to change their mind because of the way I feel. Yeah. Yeah. Then how solid is really are really those advices,
And I can relate to that, man. I tell kids, man, when they come to me and ask questions about art and everything like that, I'm like, yo, just stop talking and do it. Mm-hmm. Just put it in the art, because it's hard to pitch an idea on paper. It's hard to say, oh, it's going to do this, it's going to do that. Sometimes you just got to do it. Right. Yeah. Put it in the art, man. Put it there, because when you're presenting something, it's already a prototype they're like, oh shit, I see what you're talking
They
about.
expect-
You wanted those car the car doors to open up like this.
It's kind of like
instead of like this. It's like, oh, that shit's fly.
They expect-
'cause I can see it now.
They expect a reaction,
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
But if you just do it, you get a certain reaction.
yeah.
and you don't know what that's gonna be.
Wrote the song, produced the song,
Yeah,
engineered the song. Here it is.
And at the end of the day, you're gonna get the respect
Yep.
for it, because like I've been privileged to do songs with people like Glasses, like Secan, which is arguably the biggest name in rap in Mexico. And when I wasn't really doing much, when I wasn't really putting nothing out, I was really working behind the scenes. But to me, it's like, that's dope. It's more like respect. Like man, you dope. We want to do a song. Let's do a song. Or like G Glasses has always from the jump. Like he would always be like, he'll introduce me to people like, oh yeah, I don't know Bobby, man. He's the hardest Mexican rapper ever. He was like, the hardest Mexican rapper that don't want to be famous.
Yeah,
I kind of still do it for the love.
right.
I know that we got to eat off of this, and it's also the business side of it that eventually you have to learn and you have to deal with. You can't go around it. But for a long time, I didn't want to lose my passion for the art.
So tell us about that, about working with being able to like work from Secan, which is a Mexican rapper, rapping in Spanish, and then also rapping in English, like to Glasses Malone.
That's me. That's me. I was always very influenced by both worlds. I lived in Mexico for a minute. I still remember coming here and being like, thinking that the sidewalks were paved with gold and all that shit. So I lived all that, and I was very heavy into my culture and all that. But then I'm also from South Central LA. So growing up right there, and we grew up with rap, and we grew up and it's just two lifestyles, but they really both define me. Yeah. So
LA.
to me,
LA lifestyle.
To me, I'm at home doing both.
Mm-hmm.
And I love both. If I'm spitting a Spanish verse or English, and it's the same thing to me. And a lot of guys have told me that a lot of guys that only do one, and that they kind of feel like dabbling in the other one, but they're a little scared to take that leap of faith. They ask me like, hey, Bobby, how do you do it? Like, do you just spit in Spanish how you would in English? And I was just giving like the little wink, like it's that simple, really. Like why would you change it?
Sure,
before I remember before I would hear, I would get frustrated because I would hear some of the Spanish rappers, they rap real like real cadence, like the same cadence, or they just wanted to rap fast. Because I remember back then I used to think like, fuck, why don't they get it? Like you could hear it on the songs that you like. You could hear the cadences, you could see the skills, you could hear, you could study it. So why wouldn't you do it? A lot of people thought that you just had to spit fast to be dope. And you don't really have to make sense. Like you had the Milky Way rappers like Astrological, Magicals, like, that type of shit.
He said the Milky Way.
Milky Way rappers.
Full of them.
And to me, I kind of feel like I always understood. I never jumped into something that I feel I couldn't do.
Yeah.
I respect all music, and there's some music that I'm like, okay, this is not for me. It's not something that I can do, and that's also dope because now that I kind of do into the live production and all that, I've been able to meet like some of the dopest musicians from a bunch of different genres. That it's like, at one point I thought, if I get like these 4 dope musicians, they can probably play everything for me, and they probably can because they're dope musicians.
Yeah.
But it's flavor. The flavor is you can't. So it's like one day I was gonna do this. I have an artist that I manage and I develop her and I write for her. Her name is Janet Uribe.
She's here in the studio, by the way.
She's here with us
What's
today.
up?
And she's real. The same thing happened with her when I first heard her sing. I was like, oh shit, this shit is dope. And then she gave me a demo, and then I told her, don't ever give that demo to nobody. But I'm gonna help you out. I'm gonna help you out because you have something, but you just gotta really take it out. And I lost my train of thought.
I know. It's all good.
But yeah, man. The production wise, we had a thing that we were working on that we needed to do like some salsa-ish stuff.
Yeah.
And I was just gonna get the guys that I used to record, but then one day we got this Cuban upright bass player that used to like tour with Celia Cruz. We know who Celia Cruz is.
Yes.
And that day I realized that you need to get, like they say in Spanish, zapatero a su zapato, which means shoemaker to the shoe. It's like, because that guy came in there and he gave us so much fucking flavor with that upright that I was like, oh, but that just opened a whole new world to me of like, you know, because when you do music, that's like that's your Toys R Us, that's your theme park. That's like being able to play with music, being able to be like, okay, I'm gonna grab this trumpet player and I'm gonna get this bass player and I'm gonna get this guy and then we're gonna create this shit, this magic. And it's like, I've always said it that to me when they ask me how does it feel to see my songs coming to life, I think that is maybe the closest thing to like having a kid. Having a kid be born, it's like you see your songs being born in the studio, and it's really a out of body experience sometimes, you know. And I mean, we've been there a lot of times through that shit with Lester, where you kind of just look at each other. You don't know if you want to hug or high five. Or,
So what are the newborns out there right now? Where can people check out the newborns?
I just uploaded a song that I did with Glasses on my SoundCloud.
Okay.
The second song is already on YouTube also.
So what was that question that you were asking?
Oh, I was asking. So what's new for Bobby Castro? You dab in the norteño. You dab with Janet on some Spanish music.
I think
with
that
Glasses, hip hop. What's next for Bobby Castro? What's new?
I want to say that last year I was kind of real comfortable playing the back row of music, the behind the scenes. I started kind of getting comfortable with that, right? Where it's like, growing up in music, you want to be the main guy. You want to be the guy on stage. Yeah. You always want to be that star, you know? But I like to practice what I preach, and I always preach that within my own team and everything. Like, everybody has to play their position.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what makes a machine work, you know?
Right.
So I was like, you know what? This is also it's a young dude's game, really, to be the front man. So I took that into consideration. You know, I wasn't being in denial, and I was like, cool. Now that's why I kind of stayed doing everything else, because I started doing placements and something that would give me longevity in the game. And then right when I started doing that and then writing for different people and putting out shit, I started getting messages from some of these people from the labels and engineers and producers like, where's Bobby shit at? Want to hear Bobby shit? Want to hear one album of Bobby shit? And I'll be like, yeah, I'll probably do a little something.
What would it be? Would it be a hip hop, or would it be
not everything? A few months ago, I kind of decided that I kind of was like, you know what? I've been breaking
That'd
my head
be interesting.
my whole life to where I really haven't put shit out. It's all really just been like word of mouth stuff with me. But I just kind of decided that after getting so many emails and messages of like, what's up with my stuff, I was like, you know what? I'm gonna do one album. And instead of trying to figure out what way am I gonna go, I'm gonna just do everything that I do on that one album.
Yeah, and then it's like a compilation of like 10 different artists, but really it's all about Bobby Castro.
And he's heard some of the crazy shit that I haven't. I feel like at one point I was just like, okay, I used to tell myself, I'm not gonna really take it, like, I'm not gonna believe it till like 1,000 people tell me that I'm good.
Yeah.
Right. And then when I felt like it was 1,000 people, it was like, nah, I'm still not gonna. I'm fine how I am right now, like with my feet planted on the ground, and I'm gonna just keep it like that to where, like, you know, I'm gonna take into consideration what they tell me, and especially at first, because at first it's always your family and your friends, you know, so they're telling you you're dope, but I'm a very realistic dude, you know, and I used to be like, all right, well, those are my peoples, you know, they're gonna feel it. So then it took a minute for me to kind of like, because you do need that confidence, but it's also got to be real.
Yeah.
You know, because then you're gonna make a fool out of yourself if you're just overconfident and your shit is garbage. You know what I mean? So it took a lot of me like working, and then eventually it was like, okay, well, then it started. The people that were telling me this were people, musicians, were because then that became more important to me. It was like, what do my peers think?
Colleagues,
you know, what do they think about this? And then when it got to that point, it's like, all right, so I'm pretty good at what I do. So fuck it, I'm gonna just do it all, and I'm gonna just put it all in one album. But I have been a little bit careful choosing what songs, because I feel like, okay, a lot of these guys that are asking me for a Bobby Castro album, they've heard what I've done for other people, and they really liked it. So I figured they're gonna expect something crazy when it's my shit, and I have it, but it's just like way out sometimes. Right. And Lester's heard some of the shit, but I'm pretty content with what I have so far, and most people haven't heard none of it. Like even this Glasses song, like I've had it for like a year or two, and today I just put it out. I don't know why. It just on my memory thing, it said like it had a picture of me in glasses, and then I was like, you know what, I'm gonna put this song out.
Where can people check it out?
And it's on my SoundCloud, Bobby Castro on SoundCloud. And this year, I think I just told myself that I've always been like a perfectionist. Like I'm kind of like anal in the studio.
Yeah.
Like I become a whole nother person there because I'm super laid back in life, you know, even lazy even. But when it comes to studio, I'm like a workaholic, you know, but also being a perfectionist in the studio is kind of crazy because then you'll never put nothing out.
Yeah,
you know?
That's true. That's very true.
Also, that's the same thing that I was telling the artist that I was that we interviewed. So, I was just telling the artist, I'm like, man, the fact that people look at you in a certain way, sometimes you got to look through other people's eyes. You know,
you have to,
because
for sure.
I mean, you got years in the game, so it's like when you put something out, it's of perfection already because your seniority that's in the game. So anything else is just like, okay, cool. You're just overthinking it. But
yeah, for sure. But yeah, you gotta look at it from every angle. And I think that there's a lot of things that you go through coming up in the music that prepare you eventually for something that you're like, oh shit, like now I got an opportunity where I go somewhere and then all of a sudden it's like, oh shit, I'm controlling this session now. Which at one point in my life, I would have froze.
Yeah.
I would have just been like completely like, but now it's like, it comes natural to me. Like if I go somewhere and somebody has a session that I know and I'm there and I can help, it just naturally happens where I'm like, okay, I know what you guys can do here. And it just starts rolling like that, you know? But then I catch myself in between it and I start feeling like this little like goosebumps, like kind of like, oh shit, I'm there. It's been a long ass road, but I'm there like to where this feels natural to me. This is what I do. I can say that now. I can say this is what I do.
So that leads us to the question we like to ask everybody that comes on the show. Yes. It's what's the superpower you feel that you have? Not that you would like to have. What's the superpower you think you have?
I want to say it has to be the songwriting. I think the songwriting is my strongest point now. And this is crazy because in the Mexican regional, a lot of people would tell me when I started going back to the Mexican regional, because eventually I was in the studio and I ran into that again. I was like, damn, this was like my first love. This is what I started with.
Right.
Yeah.
And then I started going back to that, and then a lot of people were telling me like, oh, this is your shit. You should leave that hip hop alone. That shit don't make no money. Especially being a Mexican rapper, you know, like you're not gonna get no love and da-da-da. And I wouldn't really like when people would tell me that they weren't far off on some of the things on how the politics are, but I still didn't want to hear this shit, you know?
Yeah.
But the one thing that they didn't understand, and I tell them all now, is like, if it wasn't for that, if it wasn't for me, because I tell them, writing a song is fairly easy for me now, like, and not to toot my own horn, but like a lot of other writers that
in English and Spanish.
Yeah, a lot of other writers that I chop it up with, they always trip out because I'd be like, how the fuck can you write so fast? And that was all those years of training with rap.
Right.
Yeah.
Because I tell them, see, right here we get a concept or I get a call and I got a concept or it's something that I felt at the moment. I start writing it and it's kind of like, I don't have to have a punchline every 2 bars or every 4 bars. I have time, you know, I have time and space. And I was like, when I was just doing the rap shit, I would have to go to every session and write a 16 on the spot under pressure. And it's competition because rap is competitive by nature.
There's a lot of words in rap.
You know,
too,
rap, and there's a lot of words. And then you gotta come super clever and you gotta come with punchlines at least every 4 bars.
Right.
You know? So to me, after all those years of that, like training, you could say, when I started writing songs, it was like words come to me fast now.
Yeah.
And now I could spread them into a whole song as opposed to a couple of bars.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So everything happens for a reason. Like that prepared me for that. Because the whole songwriting thing, when I used to have a studio and some guy told me like, hey, can I go write at your studio? A friend of mine, rest in peace. He was like, because I can't write at home, it's like kind of noisy and I want to be in the element of music. I was like, yeah, come through. And I was working on the computer. I was doing something, and he was sitting in the back, and I could hear him writing, and I could hear him getting stuck. Yeah. So in my head, I was already like finishing the song for him, but I didn't want to be one of those dudes like, hey, you know, like. But he was a good friend of mine, so eventually I told him, I was like, why don't you say this there? And then he was like, oh shit, you want to help me out? And I finished the song for him. And the next day I wrote another song, and
Superpower.
And I showed it to him.
Wordsmith.
And when I looked up, him and his wife, they pulled up, and I was like, hey, I wrote a song, you know, I wrote a song after you left or whatever. And when I sang a little piece of the song, I looked up and they were both tearing, you know, him and his wife, and I was kind of like, I think I got something here. And he was the first guy that would tell me like, you got it. He's like, you got it, and you write from the heart.
Yeah.
And I could tell that. And then after that, it was just kind of like, it's a high. Like I have to write every day now. You know, it kind of, the music thing can drive you crazy sometimes because
and it's connecting with people.
Because I've literally woke up some nights where it's like I have damn near a full song already in my head, and I gotta be like, somebody write this shit down. You know, somebody fucking record it real quick.
Right.
But that would be it. I guess my songwriting is probably my strongest point.
All right. So we're gonna lead them out with this. If you can tell a artist that's out there in a few words, what would you tell them to motivate them about this industry and about artistry?
To do them, because nobody else can do them.
Right.
You know, when you start trying to follow trends or trying to do something else, then you lose yourself, and you also cap yourself out because somebody already did that, and nobody's ever gonna be able to do you. Right. You know what I mean? So just stay true to what you do and just keep it pushing. There's going to be a lot of things that are going to want to make you give up, because now we talked about, when I met you, we spoke about this, how like it's kind of coming back to the good music and to the appreciation of good music, which is dope.
Yeah.
But for a long time, there was a long time when everything was in limbo. And in reality, that whole artsy and really believing in your art and sticking through it wasn't respected as much. But at the end of the day, I think that's the key there. That's the key, that nobody that really made it to like, that left a legacy, they didn't follow suit. They did them to the bitter end, you know?
Yep.
Your digital sound art expression, be yourself. Bobby Castro.
That's right, Bobby Castro.
For sure, man. Thank you guys for having me.
For sure.
Absolutely.